The year is 1916. World War I rages, reshaping the globe. Trenches scar Europe, but the conflict stretches far beyond the Western Front. At the heart of the Eastern battles stands the Ottoman Empire, once mighty, now crumbling. Its sultans ruled over a diverse population, but by the 20th century, the empire was called the sick man of Europe. Its economy faltered, its military lagged, and nationalist movements threatened to tear it apart. When war broke out, the Ottomans sided with Germany and Austria-Hungary, sealing their fate. Britain and France saw an opportunity, not just to defeat an enemy, but to seize its valuable Middle Eastern lands. The war against the Ottomans was brutal. Gallipoli, Mesopotamia, the Arab Revolt. Britain promised Arab leaders independence in exchange for rebellion against Ottoman rule. But behind closed doors, a different plan was taking shape. Secretly, Britain and France plotted to divide Ottoman lands for themselves. This plan would ignore the people living there and redraw the map of the Middle East. The result was the Sykes-Picot Agreement, a deal that would change the region forever. The stage was set for betrayal, broken promises, and a legacy that still shapes the Middle East. The fate of millions would be decided in secret, far from the battlefields. The consequences would echo for generations. Why did Britain and France want the Ottoman Arab provinces, strategy, resources, and imperial ambition? The Middle East was a crossroads, vital for trade and empire. For Britain, control meant securing the route to India and the Suez Canal. France wanted to expand its influence in Syria and Lebanon, where it already had deep cultural and economic ties. Oil was becoming essential, and the region's reserves promised power for decades. Both empires saw the collapse of Ottoman authority as a chance to expand. They viewed the Middle East as territory to be claimed, not as homelands with their own histories. The logic was simple: divide the spoils before someone else could. The plan to divide the Middle East was made in secret, not in public debate. Two men, Britain's Mark Sykes and France's François-Georges Picot, were tasked with drawing new borders. Sykes, an adventurer, and Picot, a determined diplomat, met in London and Paris. They spread out maps, ignoring the region's complex realities. Their focus balancing British and French interests, not the wishes of local people. Cities and provinces were traded like bargaining chips. Mosul, for example, switched hands for its oil potential. After months, they reached ideal zones of control for each empire, with Russia and Italy promised their own shares. The agreement was a secret pact to carve up Ottoman lands, disregarding promises made to the Arabs. The fate of millions was decided by a handful of men with pencils and maps. The people living there had no say. The world would soon learn of this betrayal. The consequences would be profound. The Sykes-Picot Agreement drew a line across the Middle East, splitting it into British and French spheres. France took direct control of Syria and Lebanon. Britain took southern Mesopotamia, including Basra. Other areas were placed under indirect influence, Arab states in name, but under European control. Palestine was set aside as an international zone, its fate left undecided. These borders ignored ethnic, religious, and historical realities. The agreement laid the groundwork for future conflict, especially in Palestine. A simple line on a map would shape the region's destiny. For over a year, the Sykes-Picot Agreement was a secret. Britain encouraged the Arab Revolt, promising independence. Arab fighters, led by Sharif Hussein and aided by T.E. Lawrence, believed they were fighting for freedom. In 1917, the Bolsheviks exposed the secret deal, revealing the betrayal. News spread quickly. Arab leaders were shocked and furious. The promises of independence were a lie. Their lands were to be divided by foreign powers. This sense of betrayal poisoned relations between the Arab world and the West. The name Sykes-Picot became a symbol of Western duplicity. Despite outrage, Britain and France took control after the war. Arab pleas for independence at the Paris Peace Conference were ignored. The League of Nations granted Britain and France mandates, a thin veil for colonial rule. The dream of a unified, independent Arab state was shattered. The legacy of betrayal would last for generations. The map was redrawn, but trust was broken. Sykes-Picot created artificial borders, dividing communities and forcing rivals together. Iraq, for example, combined Sunni, Shia, and Kurdish regions, planting seeds of future conflict. The new states, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Palestine, lacked cohesion and stability. European powers ruled by divide and conquer, deepening sectarian tensions. The Kurds were denied a state, split among 4 countries. In Palestine, British promises to Jews and Arabs led to decades of conflict and displacement. The region's economies served European interests, not local needs. Fragile political systems led to coups, dictatorships, and unrest. The frustration fueled radical movements and ongoing instability. Many of today's Middle Eastern crises trace back to these lines drawn in 1916. Sykes-Picot's shadow still looms over the Middle East. For many, it's the original sin of Western intervention, a symbol of betrayal and mistrust. The borders it created have been challenged, most dramatically by ISIS in 2014. The Kurds remain stateless, and conflicts in Syria and Iraq reflect the legacy of forced unity. Resource disputes and identity struggles are rooted in these arbitrary borders. Sykes-Picot is a lesson in the dangers of drawing lines without regard for people. Its legacy is not just history, it shapes the present and the future. Remembering Sykes-Picot is essential to understanding the Middle East today.